Well, today we're going to build a handout for a membership class and even automate ordering copies of it. Brothers in ministry, let's do this. All right, well, today we will be building a membership class handout. But before we get into that, I want to start off with a post. So this is a response to this headline. Justin, GPT 5.6 Pro disproves the 30-year-old Dinitz-Garg-Goemans conjecture, a long-standing problem in mathematics after being prompted to do a breakthrough. Now, that's an incredible thing. AI making progress in mathematics. Yet the response to this is, I'm so tired of seeing these posts. I'm so tired of seeing my beloved field of study be the testing lab for a technology that is disrupting everyday life at such a high pace. Now, maybe I can try to help you understand where this person is coming from. If you study mathematics, and I have a degree in mathematics, then you are inclined to see math as an art. It is not just about finding truth. It is about finding truth, but it's about communicating that truth. There was a famous mathematician named Paul Erdős who said that there is a book in heaven of perfect proofs. And if you've ever studied math, you know what he's talking about. There are some proofs that are very elegant and others that are very convoluted. And he said, you don't have to believe in God, but you have to believe in the book. Now, that is ridiculous, of course, because if there is a book in heaven, then there must be a heaven. And there must be a God of that heaven. Now, of course, Erdős understood that he was saying something that was silly, but I don't think he realized the true irony of it. There really is a God who gives beauty to all things. If beauty is in the eye of the beholder and beauty is real, that means there is an ultimate eye to behold, and it is his eye. So I understand the sentiment behind this, but the problem is that you can't have frustration at someone being assisted in doing that communication. You see, what's happening here is there's a lot of assumption about what's going on, that the person who discovered this thing can't communicate it really, because it didn't come from their mind. It came from someone else's mind. It came from this computer's mind. Well, there may have been assistance in that, and we're all assisted with various tools that we use. Human-made tools, and AI is a human-made tool, and then from that we then communicate with those tools. And if you are inclined to be so hostile to the use of such tools, you will be a sad person. Proverbs 14:30 says, a tranquil heart is life to the body, but envy rots the bones. And I think that's what's going on for a lot of pastors who see other pastors using AI and they haven't used it before. And they see the productivity that they're having with it. And they end up objecting to this with a lot of pious sounding objections about the activity of a pastor needing to be something that is truly personal. Well, it can still be personal, even if assisted by tools. So I would encourage you to have a tranquil heart that is life to the body, instead of having envy that rots the bones. Let's never be upset at someone else's progress. Now, with that, let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be talking about today here. I would like to create a handout, an actual handbook for my membership class. Now, I've been teaching this membership class for some time. I used to have a couple of other pastors here. Things have changed. Folks have moved on, and some leaving the area, some retiring, etc. Life changes. And so now I don't have time to teach the class as frequently as I have before. And I've begun recording a lot of these classes, in order that people can watch them on their own, and then we can do just a couple of sessions afterward where I answer questions before someone would come into membership. Now, there's a lot of material for this class, and I would just hand out printed sheets and we'd go through it bit by bit. But there were several sheets, and now that I expect people to just go through this on their own along with the video. It would be good to have all of that in one place and not scattered about everywhere. So I'll walk you through some of these handouts here. One of them is this handout we do at the very end called Decision Making at SVRBC, Silicon Valley Reformed Baptist Church. And this is just about our mode of church government. It explains how decisions get made at the church, and I walk them through congregationalism. There is also this study guide where we go through the Second London Baptist Confession, also known as the 1689. And just to keep people engaged, I have these multiple choice questions. These aren't really something that I evaluate and grade anyone on. It's just to keep people engaged throughout, to make sure they're, looking through the material, and then we're able to talk about anything that was difficult to understand. And there's a key that goes along with this. Now, I, in the past, have just used the key for myself, but now that I want other people to go through it, might be helpful to hand them the key. And then there's also the constitution of the church that we go through. So if your church has a constitution, which Lord willing it does, you know what I'm talking about. You want people to understand a little bit about how the church operates and what their duties and privileges are as a member before coming into membership. Now, all that is part of the class, and I want to wrap all of that up into one handbook. I don't want to just take the PDF as it is currently, or the PDFs as they are currently, and slap them together. I would like something a little bit nicer than that. So let's talk about what needs to happen here. I can make a checklist, and we want the content PDF, right? So we want the actual file that would be this document that needs to combine the study guide. We also want the confession itself, the answer key. So let me go ahead and say 1689 confession. We're going to, let's see, can I rearrange these? Is that how that works? No, okay, I can't seem to grab these and move them around. But we've got the study guide, we've got the answer key, we need the constitution, and we also need the congregationalism class, congregationalism handout. And that's pretty much everything, except for there's also going to need to be now an instruction guide at the beginning so people know what they're supposed to do with all this material. All right, on top of that, we're going to need a couple of other things. We're going to need a cover for this document. If it's going to be an actual handbook, let's print it. And then I would like to get this shipped to us. If you've ever used a print-on-demand service like Lulu, that's what we tend to use. I would like to get this shipped through Lulu. Now, Lulu actually has an API, and so if you remember from last time, an API is the interface by which you can talk to various services, either programs or websites. And I may be able to get Lulu to ship this to me without even having to visit the website. I might need to visit the website to create an account because I haven't done that yet, but we'll get there when we get there. Last time I started using the command line in order to explain files that were in the directory. And of course, that's not a great way of explaining this stuff. So I've got this file explorer here. Also, when I say directory, directory is basically just the equivalent word for a folder on Unix-based operating systems. Since I'm using Linux, I tend to use the word directory. If you're on Mac, you also say directory. If you're on Windows, you say folder. They're really just the same thing. So I have downloaded these files. Now, you'll notice that I downloaded them all as Markdown files. When you are in Google Drive, you can export as different formats. And I decided to export these as Markdown. I don't know if that was really the best thing, but it is because you end up losing a lot of information when you do it this way. So maybe I can pull this up and show you. All right, well, this actually rendered it with Ocular. That's interesting. Open with... Let's see what we've got here. Do we have Kate? If I can show you with Kate, I don't want to do it that way. All right, text editor, there we go. Sure, let's say yes. There we go. All right, so you can see that this is just plain text. Now, I think it's going to have an easier job reading this. That's why I took it into Markdown. However, I am losing a lot of data. So if it ends up not understanding how I intend to format things, well, we'll know why. It's because I chose to export it as Markdown first. But yeah, I want these three together, and then I also want a version of the confession. Now there are lots of different versions of the confession floating around, so I'm going to need to specify that as well. Let's go ahead and actually dig around for that. One of the men at the church recently was updating our confession website, so maybe that is relevant here. If I go to baptistconfession.org, what do we have here? This looks like it is sufficiently modern, because I know we were also updating it to one of the other ones. Now, one thing I'm worried about is that this is still Spurgeon's edit. And so does this say modern use or does it say moral use? Moral use. Okay, it says moral use. So this is the right version, I believe here. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and get started. Let's just bring up Claude. Now, if you're using Claude from the desktop app, you will want to switch into Claude Code, because now I haven't used the desktop app much. I've just seen someone else use it. I think the standard prompt they put you into is just a chat that doesn't give it any kind of agency over your computer. And what we really want is some agency over the computer. Even though it's called Claude Code, that is a bit of branding. You shouldn't worry too much about, oh, well, this is for coding. It's just for having a little more agency over your computer. Also, I was asked about what version you should use of Claude. Well, first of all, when you're signing up, just install Claude Code, use the standard free account, and then upgrade as you run into usage issues. Don't worry about how much to pay. As far as the model and effort, these are things that you pick. Model, I mostly only use Opus, and then effort high. That is generally my rule of thumb for almost everything. There are specific things where I will use Fable, which is the better model, or Sonnet, which is the smaller, cheaper model. But we're not going to get into that right now. The default rule of thumb, I would say, for almost everything is just going to be Opus and effort high. All right, with that, let us clear. Okay, so I would like to put together a handout for a membership class for my church. I have 4 documents in here that you can see are all markdown files. They should go in this order. They should first go the study guide, then the key. Actually, I take that back. The key should be at the end. Let's go ahead and say that right. Study guide, then the Constitution, then the Congregationalism handout, and then the key. The study guide will be interleaved with the Baptist Confession. The version of the Baptist Confession that I want is on baptistconfession.org. It's the main one on the homepage. I do want the proof texts, but I just need the references. I don't need you to spell out the actual contents of the verses. I will also need an instruction guide at the beginning. It should tell people that they need to work through the material, fill out the questions as best they can, and then check the key afterward. And also that they should follow along with the videos that will be located at, and I haven't decided where these will be located. There is an unlisted video currently, but I don't want to send people to that URL. I want to send them to a nicer one that I will redirect to that video. So I think it'll be something like svrbc.org/orientation. Let's just go ahead and say that. Now, is there anything else that I need here? I think this pretty much covers it. Some more details about how I want this done. Sorry, let's clear. Let's go up. So when I'm going back to the previous messages, I'm just tapping up in order to do that. Okay, now we need to talk about how I want this to be formatted. I would like this on 5.5 by 8.5 inch paper, I believe. I think that's called a standard layout, but I'm not really sure. Let me go ahead and try talking here. I would like this handout to be on 8.5 inch by 5.5 inch paper. I think that's the standard layout if you're using Memoir with LaTeX. I'll go ahead and stop here. LaTeX, as you can see, it put it correctly, capital L, lowercase a, capital T, lowercase e, capital X. That is a typesetting program. Now, you're probably used to using Google Docs or Word. One of the things with Google Docs and Word is those are designed for end users to type things out and immediately see the results. They aren't made primarily for editing the underlying data directly. The way older programs work is they are made to primarily operate by editing the underlying content directly in a text file. This is how I prefer to do things, but interestingly enough, this is also how AI prefers to do things. So I'm going to tell it to use LaTeX. You would have to install LaTeX if you were going to do this. But I would encourage you, go ahead and install LaTeX. For handouts, if you use LaTeX, they will come out pretty. It will look a lot prettier than using Microsoft Word if you do it well. I'm going to give it some other details here. I would like you to use the EB Garamond font. Anything else about this? I will leave the details about Lulu for later. No, I'll go ahead and give it now because we're going to just let this thing sit and churn. I plan on printing this with Lulu, so I will need to have a cover that is the appropriate size for Lulu. Look up the standard guidelines for making a cover, and then go ahead and make me a cover of that size. That says on the top, on the cover, the front, that's what I meant to say. Front, SVRBC orientation. All right, and this might be enough. We will handle actually sending it to Lulu, etc. afterwards, but let me just go over this real quick. I think this has all the information. Oh, there is one more detail. I want it to be interleaved. Okay, I did say interleaved. All right, good. You know, I think this is going to be enough for this to work on it. So let's just go ahead, hit enter, and see where things go from there. All right, so interesting. It wants some fonts. So I'm going to go ahead and give it fonts. I think it already has these, but maybe not. Sure, why not? All right, so it asked me permission to install things. Oh. Okay, well, it's trying to install a bunch of stuff that I actually don't want it to install. I should have a local installation of LaTeX, do I not? It's trying to install things globally that I should have just installed as a user, and I'm not sure why that is. I'm just going to figure out what's going on there. I definitely have a LaTeX installation. If you try using PDF LaTeX, you should see that it exists. Okay, so my path was a little messed up. I don't know why it seems to be working for me otherwise. Just looking at my path here, the other machine. Path is basically the list of places where your programs exist that you can run. These are not, well, you might encounter this, so I guess it's worth knowing. But anyway, it is, yeah, my path needed to be updated. So I'm asking it to update my path. Go ahead and update my path. I suppose if you're doing this, you would probably just use a standard installation that wouldn't be so confused about it. I prefer having a install that is specific to my user directory. That way I can stay on the bleeding edge of LaTeX packages and things like that. But a lot of this is neither here nor there. Hopefully you don't run into these sorts of things, or if you do, there's just an obvious workaround of letting it install whatever it wants to install. That wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, but I prefer to keep my setup the way I have it. All right, and there, just updated my path. So I suppose it's about midway here, and I just want to make sure that it does a pretty good job before it asks me for feedback, so I'm going to give it a little instruction here. Make a build script in order to create this output, and then once you use it for the first time, actually evaluate the quality of the output for aesthetics, and then make any fixes that you need to make, and do that several times until it looks like it is in a good condition. So now it should actually try a little more than just do it once, right? If I had just left it at that, it might have just created a very basic document and then thrown it at me, and I would give it feedback about particular things. But now hopefully it will try to make it look pretty clean. Now there's one thing in particular that I know that I want to make sure that it knows. As you are interleaving the confession paragraphs with the study guide questions, it will not look good if there is a page break in between one of the paragraphs and the questions. A long paragraph in the confession may need a page break, but I really don't want a page break right before we get to the question, because someone should be able to look at the question and at the paragraph at the same time. Now you might wonder why it is that I bother giving these additional sentences, like the justification for why I want this. Why don't I just tell it, hey, make sure there's not a page break in between these things, etc. I want to make sure it understands my intent. The more it understands my intent, then the less likely that it is that it will take my very bare statement of instruction and then apply it in a way that I didn't intend. Sometimes it will even push back if I explain some of my reasoning and it realizes that my stated command doesn't match up with my reasoning, and so that's good too. Also, something that I didn't mention before, LaTeX has different classes, different document classes that sort of define what all the directives are and what things you can do in it. There are several standard classes. One of them is called Memoir, and Memoir is just especially powerful. I would encourage using Memoir for almost everything if you end up using LaTeX yourself. You don't have to do this kind of thing with LaTeX. You could even tell it to try to control Microsoft Word and operate in it. But I find that LaTeX is better for this sort of thing, and I would encourage you to try playing around with it. While it's building the handout, let's go ahead and sign up for Lulu. Now, I've used Lulu before, but mostly through others, namely my wife, adding PDFs and putting covers on things, etc. So I've not signed up for this myself. Let me go ahead and do that here. And I will fill out the rest off screen. All right, so I just signed up for a Lulu account, and I'm going to go ahead and start asking Claude what I need to do in order to publish this book there. I would like to automatically, through the Lulu API, publish this handout that I am currently working on making. There will be a final PDF that we can upload to Lulu. I don't know anything about the Lulu API. What do I need to do? Well, it was very flattering in the way that it transcribed my uhs there into the prompt. Something else I would like is our church's logo to be on the handbook, maybe in the lower right-hand part of the cover. So I'm going to tell it to do that too. Also, I would like my church's logo to be in the lower right-hand part of the cover. While this logo is a black SVG, it would probably make sense to make it white on a more interesting, darker background cover. And then I've pasted the URL to the logo. Here is the logo. Now, this is an SVG, which is a scalable vector graphic. What that means is that this will scale well. This is not just a rasterized bunch of pixels. This is instructions about the shapes that should be drawn. And that's going to look very good in print, whereas pixels are not going to look as good in print because print is not pixels. All right, well, it's come up with a strategy for sending this to Lulu, and it's also said that my spine formula is probably wrong. And it's suggesting that I add some of that validation about the spine into our build script, and then also do something about validating the file before sending it. All this looks mostly reasonable, so I'm going to just say yes. Oh, and then it also asked me about making orders. Don't make any orders until I ask you to. I also haven't uploaded credit card information at this point, so I probably can't make any orders. That's probably something that I need to do on the side here on my Lulu account, so I'm going to get that set up. All right, I actually can't figure out how to add credit card information, and I'm guessing that it won't really be simple until I'm trying to make an order, and then it'll be obvious. So we'll just wait until we get there. So let's try to navigate this Lulu API together. I've looked for Lulu API and ended up on this page, and I'm not quite sure. This is not the most straightforward task here. I imagine if I were using AI to figure it out, it would actually figure it out pretty quickly. Maybe I'll just go ahead and do that. Let's try this. Here we go. I would like you to open up Chrome and try to sign up for a developer key in the Lulu API. you can write this to a file locally so that you would be able to use it. All right, let's see what happens. Now, the way that this is going to work is it's going to use and let me switch views here. It's going to use the Chrome plugin that exists for, or the Chrome extension that exists for Claude, so that Claude can now control my browser. So it's going to be using it in this tab, and it's going to be navigating to try to sign up for the API to get a key. We'll see what happens. All right, so I actually opened it up on the wrong browser profile. This is the real browser profile. And so as you can see, Claude is going ahead and controlling it. All right, and it's talking about things. Claude's reading that thing about shipments to the Middle East. And then it is checking out the client keys. This was actually all really easy once I got to the right URL, but it found the right URL, and that was the important thing. So now it's copying this, and I'm just along for the ride. I'm not doing anything here. I suppose it's going to store this. If you remember last time, we talked about the standard for keeping keys like this being in .env. These get blurred out. The secret keys here. So as you can see, it stored it in .env. Like I had mentioned, that this is the standard for storing passwords for projects. However, it stored it in my home directory, which is not really what I wanted. I wanted it to be particular for this project. For another project, I can make a new secret key. So let me go ahead and give it some instructions here. I did not want this stored globally in my home directory. I wanted this to be specific to this project. Please move that key to this directory. All right, now as I'm looking back on this tab, it's telling me that I need to add these things to the .env. Of course, it doesn't know that that other instance of Claude already did this, at least did it for the client key and the client secret. I'm not sure if it added sandbox keys. Sandbox keys are for trying out things that might cause credit card charges, etc., to fake credit cards. That way you can just test things out. Let me go ahead and ask that other instance of Claude if it did that. Did you also set up sandbox keys? If not, can you go ahead and do that? I'm going to add another note here. Ideally, I would like the spine sideways to say SVRBC orientation, but then after that to have the church logo vertically. And by the logo, I mean just the cross, not the words of the logo. All right, so this instance of Claude is done grabbing the sandbox keys. I will go ahead and tell the other one it can try things out. Okay, you should have the sandbox keys now. Go ahead and do whatever testing you would like to do. All right, I'm not sure what the issue was, but go ahead and try creating another client key. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but it seemed to have lost my account, and you should have the sandbox keys now for real. All right, well, it looks like the book is done, so let me go ahead and try looking at it. Go ahead and open up the document with Ocular. Ocular is just the PDF viewer that I use. In fact, it might have made more sense to just open it up in Chrome. Let me go ahead and cancel that. Well, it just opened it up anyway. All right, well, look at this. We've got this, and note some of the details here. It's shifted everything a little over to the right, which means that it's handling the pages correctly for print, since it needs a gutter in the middle, right? These two, see how this margin is smaller than this margin. That's because there's a gutter in the middle of the book. All right, that is good. All right, part 1, study questions, etc. Chapter, nice. Things are looking good. We've got the chapter titles up in the header. Oh, that's pretty classy. I'm mostly a fan of the way that these questions are showing up, but some of them have borders at the top and some have borders at the side. This one's got borders on different parts. I'm guessing they all have borders all the way around, but they are just not being displayed correctly. Now, for some reason, it's reloading. I guess that means one of the agents just rebuilt. Oh, and rebuilt again. So this is gonna take us a second. There we go. Let's keep looking. Things are looking pretty good here. I'm mostly a fan of this. I am wondering next whether we have, let me just go ahead and make this bigger for us. I am wondering whether the parentheses around the letters is the cleanest way of doing that. I guess that's a kind of standard way. Yeah, I just wonder if there's something better there. Let's continue. Proofs. I don't totally like that it says proofs in the front. I'm going to start taking notes here. Let me bring this over to the side. Or can you go ahead and open this up in Chrome instead? All right, now I'm going to go ahead and tell this other agent to rehearse in the sandbox because that's what it's asking to do. Rehearse in the sandbox basically means practice placing an order. I imagine that I need to put my credit card information somewhere. Can you link me to the place where I need to give my credit card information to Lulu? Okay, so let's take some notes on what we've got going on here. Well, first of all, we seem to have put all this together. So let's go ahead and verify actually though. We have in the table of contents all these things. We have the Constitution, we have decision making, we have the answer key. Okay, yeah, that is everything we needed. But let's talk about the things that I don't like here. That includes things that I don't like. Borders around questions do not always appear correctly. The labels for the questions do not seem to be necessary because they just follow the question they are for. Right, let's grab that over a little bit more. All right, what else is wrong here? I had commented on the parentheses being around these letters. I'm not sure if that's the best way of doing it. I guess it is. I think I'm just going to leave that for now. I don't like that it says proofs. Let's just tell it to not say proofs. Do not say proofs just before having proofs. That seems unnecessary. Okay, we'll keep going here. Everything's looking pretty good. Everything is looking pretty good. I'm appreciating the margins here. I think they make a lot of sense. I do think we're losing a lot of space on the starts of these chapters. How many pages is this? So this is 130 pages. That's tolerable. That's tolerable for me. Now, maybe that's a little intimidating for a new member, so it would be good to cut down on some of this space, but the question I'm asking is, do we want to get rid of some of that extra margin? But it's really not that much, so I'm going to just leave it. Let's keep going. Okay, all that. Now the Constitution of the Church all looks pretty reasonable. I don't have too many thoughts on that. All that looks good. Now the decision making. Decision making probably shouldn't have a hyphen in it. What else do we have here? Blah, blah, blah. This is just my material. Something that is default in LaTeX that I don't like is how much space is in between elements in the list. So I'm going to tell it to get rid of all that extra space. Get rid of all the extra space in between elements in a list. Make lists more compact. All right, part 4, answer key. Yeah, I think there's just a bit too much with the generosity and giving extra pages for these different parts. Let me go ahead and look at each of these. We've got the part 1. Yeah, there's just too much. There's just too much. All right, let's get rid of the part dividers. Get rid of the part dividers. And that's gonna get rid of some of that extra page. It will still make sure that each section starts on a recto being a right-hand page, so that's good. I'm pretty sure it will. But we don't need these extra parts. What's happening is we're adding one page so that the part can show up on the right-hand page. Then we add another blank page so that the beginning of it can start another right-hand page. And this is just adding too many pages. We want this to be a little thinner than that. Continuing on, decision making, etc. The answer key looks reasonable. That all looks reasonable. Okay, now we got to check the instructions. That's the real thing that's needed here. Okay, and I would also like a QR code in addition to this. So a QR code would be good. Add a QR code to the title page where it mentions the companion videos. Okay, now the instructions. How to use this handbook. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I might just read this. This handbook is written as a companion to the orientation class. It gathers in one place the confession of faith we hold, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, let's change a lot of this stuff. There's so much I want to change here. Okay, I'm going to go back to Claude and ask it to let me edit this directly because there's just too much here. Can you pull up a text editor for the instruction part of this handbook so I can edit it? Now I notice over here it's telling me that I'm going to need to host these at public URLs. I don't know if that's true, so I'm going to ask, do I really need to host these at public URLs, or is that just a way of getting around some difficulty? All right, now it's pointing out that right now the instructions are just clobbered into a bunch of other stuff. So it's going to reorganize the information so that it is a distinct file that I can edit directly. All right, it really does want a hosted PDF unless I want to manually go to the Lulu site and then upload it, which I'd rather not do. The whole point of this was to not have to touch anything. So I'm going to ask it if there are any standard services where I could just upload it and host it. Are there any standard services where I could host a PDF for a short period of time? Now, I actually have plenty of things that I as a developer can use to do that. But I want to see if there's some kind of standard thing that I could be doing just to demonstrate that this is possible, even if you don't have means already at your disposal. So it brought up the instructions here, but let me pull that aside for a minute and finish this. Okay, I'll ask it that and we'll come back to it. So you'll notice there's a lot of task switching if we're going to be really efficient with our use of AI, because it's fast, but not fast enough that you can just sit there unless you really want to waste your time. So we've got to, keep all these balls in the air and move them around. Actually, one way that helps, because right now I'm just using 2, and then I have this third over here that I'm going to go ahead and kill. Let me go ahead and kill that. You can use the rename command, at least on the command line. I'm sure if you're in the desktop, there's a different way of doing it, maybe like a right click or something. But I can say rename Lulu and rename PDF. So over here, I'm worried about hosting on Lulu, and over here, I'm worried about the PDF, because it can get hard to keep track of these things. For my tasks, when I'm doing this on my own, a lot of times I'll have 4 up at one time, or even 5, and it can be hard to keep it together. So naming your sessions is helpful. Now back in here, let me go ahead and make this bigger for you. If we look at this, what is going on? Oh, right, this was the instruction, how to use the handbook. I just wanted to get rid of a lot of this information. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Well, let's go ahead and leave that. This handbook is written, blah, blah, blah. Work through this handbook at your own pace. Bring your questions with you to class. I don't like a lot of this copy. We're gonna fix a lot of these things. All right, work through the material. Read the handbook straight through. And the order is printed. Part 1. Yeah, the parts are good. I just want this to be more terse. Maybe I can have it try to edit this a little more directly. Let me just kill this. And have it edit it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is basically edit this file, not primarily with the keyboard, but primarily with talking to Claude and asking it to do this for me. So I'm going to make this a little bigger. And I'm just going to describe the edits I want. Let's figure this out. Okay, what do I want? Can you make the instructions much more terse? All right, well, that wasn't a great idea because it ends up taking it down every time I touch Claude. So let me see if I can pin this. Always on top. There we go. All right, so it's pinned. Close file. How do I refresh? Just refresh. Enable auto reload. There we go. All right, now it's going to auto reload for us. Okay. Even more terse. Just go right into it. Say something along the lines of, it's great that you signed up for It's great that you are interested in learning more about our doctrine and practice here at SVRBC. To complete the orientation class, go through these several things in order and then put them in a numbered list. As a subpoint to the confession, go ahead and explain that they should write the answers and then check them in the key. After explaining all this, or rather after the list, point out that they should write down along the way any question that they have. There will be a question and answer session roughly once a quarter for anyone who is interested in membership, where we can go through anyone is welcome to join, but for those who would like to join as members in SVRBC, this is a step in the membership process. A lot of that was very awkwardly worded, but I'm hoping you can make it simpler. There should be no sections to this instruction guide because that makes it too heavyweight. It should just be the intro, the outline, and then the statement at the end about the quarterly sections. All right. Well, that was a bit of a disaster in describing it, but I'm going to see what it does. Meanwhile, we can pull this aside and look at what it did. Talked about Dropbox, GitLab, release asset, object storage. This is probably the right answer, but this is more sophisticated than I really want to expose folks to. So, now this one is a really interesting one, a tail scale funnel. Basically, it turns your computer into the host for the public URL momentarily. And then once Lulu has it, it shuts it down. That is actually really cool. I do have Tailscale installed. This isn't necessarily how you should do it. You should probably just use the wizard, but I'm going to do this. Yes, go ahead and do the Tailscale funnel. That sounds really neat. I don't know why I told it that sounds neat, but it does. All right, well, it looks like it's mostly done editing this. Let's simplify it a bit. We are glad that you are welcome to the orientation class. We are glad you want to know more about the doctrine and practice of our church. To complete that course, work through the following. These don't have to be in parts. The confession. Skip that. That's not needed. Study question. Write down, mark your answer. I don't know if I like this phrasing, what we have covenanted together under. How about just our governing documents and church covenant? It explains our model of church government, how decisions are made in the church, either by the elders or together as a congregation. Not sure I like that last sentence. Let's try again. Oh, it just did that again. Let me see. Always on top. I'm not sure the last sentence is very smooth. Can you try making it smoother? Also, can you just check the whole thing for grammar or typos? Sorry, I updated the document. Try again. right, well, I'm more or less happy with what it came up with, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I am now going to put all these comments that we had, remember these that we wrote over here? Let's go ahead and put all of those in there. So here you can see I handed it all our concerns and it will work on that. All right, so it says it's gone ahead and built the funnel, but it wants to test it more. It's asking me for permission, so I'm going to go ahead and give it permission. Go ahead and do your test. So I've noticed here there are some things that I don't totally like about this. The fact that we're in Sunnyvale, California is not really necessary. This is not really necessary either. So we could take up some of the vertical space with putting a new line between SVRBC and orientation. I'll go ahead and add this too. Let's go back to Claude. On the title page, I would like it if there were a new line between SVRBC and orientation. I also think that you could get rid of Silicon Valley Reformed Baptist Church. I think that you could get rid of Sunnyvale, California, and that the subtitle could be much simpler. It could just be a handbook about our doctrine and practice. Handbook's not the best. An introduction. An introduction to our doctrine and practice. All right, if you take a look here, it has updated things. We've got a nice QR code. I can test whether or not that QR code works. Hopefully it's not just totally made up, but I'm holding on my phone here. Let's see. Yes, it goes to the right place. So, looking onward. Yeah, well, that looks pretty simple. The ampersand rendered correctly, which I was a little worried about. Now, for the Constitution, I don't necessarily care that someone reads the whole thing, so I feel like there needs to be more instructions here. As I've taught this class in the past, I've just kind of focused on the church covenant. Maybe I will just specify that they should focus on that. In the introduction, after the explanation of what the Constitution is, say that the reader should see the church covenant on page, specify the page number. The rest of the document is there simply for their perusal as desired. All right, very cool. We have a price guide here. If I get 20 copies, that's going to be $5 unit at this page count. And that's going to be $145. All right, very good. It's now at 130 pages. So, yeah, very good. And we've got these different scripts. I'm not going to call these scripts by hand. I'm just going to ask Claude to run them. But we do have them there, so that is good. Now, it is saying that I need to fill out these pieces of information. I assume that those are supposed to go into the .env file, but I don't know. Where do I need to put that information? So because I'm probably going to host this project publicly, it's giving me the option of making all this public. Since my email address is public and my church address is public, it's not necessarily a big deal for this to be public. However, I would probably have this sent to my house rather than to a public place, to the church. So I'm going to go ahead and have it fill that in as an example. look at my church website, fill in the information, but then only make it a lulu.example.json. Copy that to lulu.json, and then I will edit in the real value that since I'm going to use my home address. All right, now the next thing that we really need to check is the cover. The cover. Can you bring up the cover in Chrome? Oh, that is classy. Very nice. Very nice. I think there might be a little too much white space here. All right, and it turns out this, oh no, wait. This is interesting, SVRBC orientation, and then the little cross. It did it the way I asked it to. Amazing. Amazing. This feels like it might be a bit much. The confession of faith, the constitution, the congregational practice, blah, blah, blah. That's a bit much. Also, our logo, so many places, that is also a bit much. Let me go ahead and write down a few things here. We want to, I'm just going to do this on paper. I've been trying to write this in this document for you, but then bringing this up on the side and bringing the other thing, it's kind of hard. I tend to write stuff down on paper when I'm using AI because I find that there's just so much going on that having something actually stable is helpful. So I'm going to write down that I don't like the dull logos underneath the cover on the front and back. Okay, so remove dull logo. What else don't I like? I'm not sure where this should go. You know, we do have other documents that we've made at the church, and I would like it to be consistent. I'm trying to remember if they were on the front or the back that we print the logo. So I'm going to go find one of those and come back. All right, so I went and grabbed a book that we've made before. This is a 2 Chronicles workbook that I'm going through on Wednesday nights with the church, and we put our logo small and on the back, and that is pretty much it. So let's write that down. Okay, it should just be on the back. Full logo on lower right of back, not front. One thing that concerns me is this right here. I'm not sure how wide the spine is. That might be way more narrow than it needs to be. I should ask it to draw a guide, but I don't know how long that's going to take. Well, it shouldn't be too bad. Let me just ask it. Can you make a version of the cover that has lines where the spine is so that I can see how wide it is, and then go ahead and open that in Chrome for me? You can delete it after I look. Also, 2 updates for the cover. I would like the dull cross logo to be removed from the front page and the back page. The full logo that you have in the bottom right of the front page, I would actually like to be in the bottom right of the back page. Now there was the content. I didn't like the content, if you remember. Okay, so what was the content? The confession of faith, the constitution. Yeah, this could be improved a little. Also, there was the space in between that I didn't like. Let me go ahead and comment on those things. Also, there is a little too much space in between SVRBC and orientation on the front cover. On the back, I would like it to be a terser list of the 1689 confession, the SVRBC Constitution, and congregational government. That doesn't sound great, but we'll improve it from there, I guess. Okay, so if we go back to these guidelines, so it made it with the guidelines. We have more space on the spine to work with. Now, if you've ever printed before, you know that these things aren't perfect and they shift a bit. So it was probably being a little too conservative with the space that it has available. So let me go ahead and ask it to just make it a bit bigger. The spine seems to be large enough that you could make the cross on the spine and the title on the spine a bit bigger. Please go ahead and take advantage of more of the space. When you re-render this, I'm going to want to see it with the guidelines again. All right, while that's going on, I noticed it over here it complained because it tried to fill out information about the church on the front, but I actually wanted to just fill out my own information. So let me go ahead and edit that. Can you open up lulu.json in Kate? That's my file editor that I'm going to use, and then I'll just do that on the side here. I've updated lulu.json with my personal information. Can you look at it and tell me if it looks sufficient? All right, it's got another version of this cover. Let's go ahead and look at it. All right, we've still got this subtitle that I mentioned that I didn't like. And it's got stuff on the back. Okay, it's got a little bit more in the spine, and I know that it's going to shift a little in production, but I wanted to take more advantage, especially with the logo. The logo definitely needs to be bigger. So let's try that. On the back, instead of congregational government, say an introduction to congregationalism. On the front, the subtitle should say an introduction to our doctrine and practice, just like it does on the title page. Now, I'm also wondering if I should have some kind of tagline or something that encourages people to go through it regardless of whether or not they're interested in membership. I think that I will probably post a sign next to this instructing people what it's for, rather than actually putting it on the document. So let's just leave it. Let's say something more about the spine though. I'd still like the title and logo on the spine to be a bit larger, especially the logo. I think it will be forgiving even if the print quality shifts a bit. Print quality wasn't the right thing to say, but it'll figure it out. Something else I notice here is that this title is in the middle of the spine, and spines that I like tend to place it all the way at the top, left aligned if you were looking at it sideways. So I'm going to specify that as well. The title should be left aligned or at the top of the spine rather than in the middle of the spine. It's given me another proof here. This looks pretty good. I'm happy with this. The logo is a good bit larger, which I like. I do think it could probably be a little larger, but that's about where I want it. This is sensible. The Constitution, an introduction to congregationalism, etc. An introduction to our doctrine and practice. Very classy. Very classy indeed. Now just another run through the document itself. We didn't really double check some of these changes, but yeah, it got rid of proofs, it got rid of the number. All that looks pretty good. The border's showing up every time, so that looks really good. There are some things in my congregationalism class that I don't think are as well typeset as they could be, but and so this should be more of a subtitle. We can have it at least do that. That should be more of a subtitle. We can make the verses more consistently spelled out and also bold, and rather than a hyphen, a real em dash in between them. And there's just a lot of things that are not consistent. Some of these have colons, some of them don't. Yeah, there's a lot to be improved here, and it's not going to be perfect. So let me go ahead and just give it some instructions. I don't really care to make all this perfect, but I do want it to look a little bit nicer. For the decision-making section, please make Congregationalism in a Nutshell the subtitle for that chapter / section / part, whatever you want to call it. Then I would like the verses to be more consistent, spell out the references, use an em dash afterward, bold the reference so they stand out a bit better. And then each section should be a little more consistent. Some of them end in colons, some of them don't. Go ahead and make that more consistent. You can go ahead and edit my zip code yourself. All right, let's try this credit card thing one more time. In Chrome, can you open up the page where I would give my credit card information to Lulu? All right, well, interestingly, instead of just opening up that page, it decided to open it up with Claude controlling it. It didn't try to do anything, but I think that was because I phrased it in Chrome, can you open, instead of can you open in Chrome. I bet if I had phrased it differently, it would have just opened the link. Well, it has re-rendered the handbook, so let's go ahead and jump down to this section. It has bolded the verses, it has made the em dashes more consistent. That looks a lot better. I'm not sure I like the bold. Maybe it would have been better as just italics, but this will do. This will do. These could be a little more compact. Yeah, I think I'm gonna ask it to change these things. I'm gonna make it italicize the verses instead, and then make the lists a little more compact. Can you make the lists a little more compact? And then also, instead of bolding the verses in the congregationalism section, just make them italics. Okay, well, as you can see here, we've got a italicized Bible verse reference. We've got a tighter list in this material, and everything is looking pretty good. So I'm happy with that. I can refresh the cover. The cover's looking pretty good. Everything looks great. So now it's time to ship it. Can you tell me what the pricing scheme is? At what quantities will I get better prices? All right, well, the volume discount only happens at 100 copies, and I'm not going to be getting that many of these, especially since I'll probably make a few edits before ordering the next batch. I imagine that even just 10 might be good for a first set, but I'll probably do 20 just so that we have enough for a while. A lot of times people will come, they'll be interested, they'll come 1 or 2 times and they won't come back, and then we're out of book. So might as well go ahead and get 20 of these. I think would be a good set. Although, okay, so looking at this more, even though we get a volume discount at 100, it looks like the shipping rates make it so that it's better to get more. So it looks like for 10, it would be $8 a copy, and for 30, it would be $7 a copy once you include shipping. One of the nice things about Lulu is because it's print on demand, they're shipping from different kinds of places, and so they can be shipping close to you, I think even internationally, which is really nice. So if you're printing material that's not just for your church like I am, that can be good because you're getting a rate that's nice for people close by. Because the discount is per print job, not cumulative, 4 separate orders of 25 get no discount at all. Yeah, etc., etc. Okay, let's go ahead and pull the trigger on this. 30 would be 210. 10 would be 79. Let's go ahead and do 20 copies. That sounds like the right number. Go ahead and order 20 copies. Okay, so I just noticed that over here, it ended up not regenerating the cover for the slight page change. I think the Lulu tab that was ordering was making sure that a fresh build was done, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to go ahead and build this. It was the one that identified that we were not at the right size. So let's go ahead and do this. Regenerate the cover. Also, I believe what would have happened is that Lulu would have rejected the cover since it's not precisely the right size. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's how Claude knew that something was wrong. Continue. All right, well, it placed the order. Let's check that out. There it is, right there. $144.56 for my 20 copies of this 129-page book that looks something like this and this. Nice. Very cool. All right. Well, that was a ride. Now, note that a lot of the stuff I was doing here was totally unnecessary. I imagine that most people doing this have really no need to automate the payments through Lulu. In the future, though, I do plan on building out more of a system for the books that we put out through the church. So I wanted to try this. I've been interested in the Lulu API for some time, but you didn't need to do that. If you wanted to make some kind of handout, you could have just made the PDF with the appropriate cover size and then just gone and manually put it in one of these websites that would do the print on demand service for you. So hopefully this was pretty helpful. Hopefully you looked at this and realized, wow, I could do this. I could take some documents that I've put together in Google Docs or in Word and have it generate something kind of pretty. Hopefully you learned a few tools like LaTeX and things like that, stuff that you realize, okay, AI can take advantage of these maybe better than it can other tools. Well, may you be blessed as you continue to build things for the kingdom of God. The lines have truly fallen for us in pleasant places.